Welcome to Martha Family Secrets Stories. It is just a chair. That is what my father said. Out loud. In front of 53 people. 6 weeks after my ankle reconstruction surgery. At a party I planned, I decorated, and I paid for down to the last centerpiece and the last string light and the last sprig of eucalyptus tucked into every hydrangea arrangement on every table. I was standing there in a walking boot and a navy dress I had picked out 3 days earlier, leaning on a single crutch, watching a woman I had never met in my life settle into my seat at the head table. She had been dating my brother for 2 weeks. And my father looked right at me and said it. It is just a chair. You can stand in the corner. Do not be dramatic. What my parents did not know, what nobody in that room knew yet, was that 3 days earlier I had discovered something about my bank account. Something that made the chair the least of their problems. By the end of that night, I would not be the one standing in the corner anymore. My name is Claire. I am 34 years old. I am an event planner in Ridgemont, Pennsylvania. And this is the story of what happened the night I stopped paying for my own silence. Please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. Let me take you back 6 weeks before that party. To the afternoon everything began to crack. The floor at the Hargrove Estate venue was wet from overnight rain. I was there to measure the tent footprint for a June wedding, my biggest contract of the year. I stepped down the stone stairs near the garden terrace. My left foot slid out from under me like someone had pulled the ground sideways. I heard the snap before I felt it. And then I felt it. Compound fracture. Left ankle. The orthopedic surgeon used the phrase reconstructive repair 3 times during the consultation, and each time the number attached to it got larger. Surgery, 8 weeks non-weight bearing, 3 to 6 months of physical therapy. My career depends on being on my feet 10, 12 hours a day. Walking venues. Directing setups. Sprinting across ballrooms when the florist delivers the wrong shade of white. This was not just an injury. This was a threat to everything I had built. I called my mother from the recovery room. My voice was still thick from anesthesia. I told her what had happened. Sandra Finch listened for about 12 seconds. So you can still organize our anniversary party, right? She said. It is in 6 weeks. Not are you okay? Not do you need anything? Not even that sounds painful. Just the party. Their 40th. Yeah, Mom, I said. I can still do the party. Good. Because your father has been looking forward to it. She hung up. I stared at the ceiling tiles, still groggy, still numb. The nurse came in to check my 4. My colleague and closest friend Diane was the only person sitting in the visitor's chair. She had driven me to the hospital. She had called my insurance company. No one from my family came. Not that afternoon, not the next day, not once during the entire recovery. Diane brought me soup on day 3. My mother sent a text on day 5. Don't forget, the caterer needs a final head count by the 20th. Ah, I know. I know how that sounds. But this was not new. This was just Tuesday with my family. Here is the thing about being the responsible child. Nobody ever asks how you became responsible. They just expect it. Like gravity. Like weather. 3 years ago my parents were 3 months behind on their condo rent. My father Raymond had just been laid off from the paper mill outside Ridgemont. Sandra had never held a paying job in her adult life. The landlord filed eviction papers on a Tuesday. By Friday I had bought the condo. Cash from my savings. $87,000. I put my name on the deed, set up a lease at $400 a month. Market rate was $1,400. I also opened a joint savings account in my name and Raymond's, so they could access funds in a genuine emergency. I seeded it with $22,000. My physical therapy reserve. My safety net. In 3 years, my parents had paid rent on time exactly 0 months out of 36. Every emergency withdrawal from that joint account had gone to the same place. My brother Brett. Brett's car repair. Brett's speeding ticket. Brett's bail after his second DUI. Last month Sandra called asking for $3,200. The water heater had broken, she said. We will freeze. I transferred it within the hour. 2 weeks later Raymond mentioned in passing that the water heater had been running fine all winter. Where did that $3,200 go? I started to wonder. But I was in a walking boot planning a party from my couch with my ankle elevated on 3 pillows, and I honestly did not have the mental space to chase it yet. I asked Diane to look at the account statements when she had a minute. She was an accountant. She was thorough. Sure, she said. But Claire, promise me you will actually look at what I find. At that point I had no idea how much they had already taken. The real number would not surface until 3 days before the party. Let me tell you about Brett. My brother is 38 years old. He has never held a job longer than 6 months. He has been fired from a warehouse, a car wash, a landscaping crew, and a restaurant where he lasted 11 days before the manager caught him taking tips from a coworker's section. 2 DUIs. Money owed to at least 3 people I know about, probably more I do not. He plays online poker the way some people breathe, constantly and without thinking about it. He has also been my mother's favorite since the day he was born. I do not say that with bitterness. I say it the way you say Pennsylvania is cold in February. It is simply a fact. Every time Brett wrecks something, a car, a relationship, a lease, Sandra calls me. Same script every single time. He is your brother. Family helps family. And I do it. Every time. Because the alternative is 45 minutes of her crying on the phone about how nobody in this family cares except her. Meanwhile I had built a business from nothing. I plan weddings, corporate events, fundraisers. I have a client list. I have a reputation. When the Rotary Club needed a gala coordinator last year, they called me. When I told Sandra about the Rotary contract, $15,000, my biggest single booking, she said that is nice, can you send Brett $200, he is short on groceries. I sent the $200 that night. I never mentioned the Rotary Gala again. Diane called on a Wednesday evening. Her voice had that particular careful quiet that people use when they are about to deliver something you are not going to want to hear. We need to talk about your savings account, she said. Call me when you can. It is not good. I did not call Diane back that night. Instead, I spent 3 hours finalizing the seating chart for my parents' anniversary dinner. 8 seats at the head table. Sandra, Raymond, me, Brett, Aunt Carolyn, Uncle Philip, Great-Aunt Helen, and Cousin Maggie. 53 total across 7 tables at the VFW Hall on Maple Street. I designed the centerpieces myself. White hydrangeas with eucalyptus and small framed photos from my parents' wedding. I ordered a 3-tier cake from the bakery on 5th. I booked the caterer, chose the menu, chicken piccata or prime rib, garden salad, roasted potatoes. I printed the invitations on cream linen cardstock. Total cost $6,500. All mine. My parents had not contributed a single cent. Every day Sandra called with a new demand. Never a question about my ankle. Never a how are you healing. Just instructions. Change the font on the place cards. Add the Garcias, Raymond just remembered them. Switch the salmon to prime rib. I make every change. I tell myself this is the last big thing I will do for them. The final gesture. After the party I will step back. I will set limits. I will start fresh. I practice walking in the boot around my apartment. Left foot, crutch, right foot. The physical therapist told me the reconstruction was solid but I needed to stay off it as much as possible for another 2 weeks. My plan was to sit through the entire dinner. That was the whole reason I put myself at the head table. So I would not need to get up. On Thursday morning I finally called Diane. She did not ease into it. They withdrew $18,000 from your joint account, she said. For separate transactions over 2 months. All signed by your father. My chest went cold. Rachel reads me the transactions one by one. I sit on the edge of my bed with the phone on speaker, staring at my walking boot. March 2nd, 4,800. March 14th, 4,200. March 29th, 5,000. April 8th, 4,000. $18,000 total. That was my physical therapy fund. My insurance covered the surgery. Not the rehabilitation. The specialist program Dr. Henley had specifically recommended cost $3,000 a month for 6 months. Without it, the odds of full recovery dropped significantly. If my ankle did not heal properly, I would limp. If I limped, I could not run a venue setup. If I could not run setups, I would lose contracts. If I lost contracts, I would lose everything I had spent 12 years building. I called the bank. The branch manager pulled the records. Every withdrawal was signed by Raymond Finch. Authorized. Legal. Because his name was on the account. There was no dispute process. No fraud claim. He had the right to withdraw. That was the whole point of joint access. I asked Diane to cross-reference the dates. She found it in under an hour. The 4,200 on March 14th went directly to a pawnshop on Route 9. The same day Brett's truck was repossessed for unpaid loans. Another chunk lined up with a payment to the county clerk of courts. Brett's second DUI fine. $18,000. 6 months of physical therapy. My career. My recovery. My future. All of it handed over to cover Brett's gambling and his drunk driving and his choices that nobody in this family ever made him answer for. Claire, Diane said quietly. This is not a mistake. This is a pattern. I sat with that sentence for a long time after she hung up. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up the lease agreement for my parents' condo. Renewal date, April 30th. 45 days away. I had not signed the renewal. I printed the non-renewal form just in case. That night I sat alone in my apartment with the walking boot propped on a pillow. The non-renewal form was on the kitchen table, unsigned. The account statement was beside it, every withdrawal highlighted in yellow. I picked up a pen. Then I put it down. I was not ready yet. I needed to hear what they would say first. I needed to give them one chance to tell the truth. I called my mother the next morning. Sunday. 3 days before the party. I had folded the non-renewal form into thirds and tucked it inside my clutch just in case. Mom, I said, I need to ask you something about the savings account. 3 seconds of silence. I counted them. What about it? $18,000 is gone, I said. 4 withdrawals. Dad signed for all of them. A pause. Then her voice shifted to that smooth, measured tone she uses when explaining to neighbors why Brett is between things again. Controlled. Practiced. Your father and I borrowed it. We were going to tell you. It has been 2 months, Mom. We have been busy with the party. Where did the money go? Bills. The water heater replacement. You know how expensive everything is right now. The water heater Dad told me was running fine all winter. Silence. And the 4,200 to the pawnshop on Route 9? That is when the tone changed. No more smooth. No more measured. Are you spying on us now? Is that what we raised you to be? I did not raise my voice. I am reading my own bank statement, Mom. That money was a family emergency. Brett needed help. Brett always needs help. He is your brother. Raymond's voice from the background. He must have been listening. Your mother is right. We will pay it back. Let us not ruin the party over this. Pay it back how, Dad? You are on a pension. Mom does not work. We will figure it out. We always do. They always do. Which means I always do. I told them I needed to go. Sandra got in one last sentence before I hung up. Her voice dropped to something hard and flat, like a door being closed from the other side. Do not you dare bring this up at the party. You will embarrass the whole family. I stared at the phone for a long time. Then I opened my clutch, took out the non-renewal form, and I signed it. Stay with me. Because what happened at that party is something that 53 people in Ridgemont, Pennsylvania will not forget for a very long time. Part 2 is coming, and it starts the moment I walked through those VFW Hall doors in my walking boot with that signed paper folded inside my clutch. The VFW Hall on Maple Street looked exactly the way I had planned it. White tablecloths. Hydrangea centerpieces. A banner stretched across the far wall that read 40 years of love. The string lights I had spent 2 phone calls tracking down cast a warm amber glow across the hardwood floor. I had organized every detail of this room from my couch with a broken ankle and a laptop and a phone pressed between my shoulder and my cheek. I arrived at 6:15. 15 minutes before the guests. Walking boot, crutch under my right arm, navy cocktail dress, hair pinned up in a twist, small pearl earrings. My clutch was tucked under my left arm. Inside it, the signed non-renewal notice folded into thirds. The bank statement beneath it with 4 withdrawals highlighted in yellow. I had zipped the clutch closed that morning and had not opened it since. Everything I might need was in there. The hall filled quickly. Uncle Philip and Aunt Carolyn came in first, then the Garcias, then Great Aunt Helen, 78 years old, using a cane and still sharper than anyone else in the room. Cousin Maggie, Carolyn's daughter, 30 years old, wearing a green wrap dress, spotted me near the entrance and rushed over. She hugged me. You look great. Mom was worried about you. Worried how? Maggie hesitated. Glanced toward the head table where Sandra was smoothing a napkin with the focused attention of someone who is being watched. Just worried. I let it go for the moment. I checked the head table. 8 place cards exactly as I had arranged them. My seat was at the far end next to Aunt Carolyn. Close enough to be part of the family. Far enough that I would not need to stand up. Sandra and Raymond were already at the center, greeting people with matching smiles. They had not looked at me once since I walked in. I sat down. My ankle throbbed the second I lowered my weight. But I was sitting. That was what mattered. Or so I thought. Maggie came back 10 minutes later. She slid into the chair next to mine and leaned in close. Okay, I need to tell you something, she said. And I do not want you to get upset. That is never a good start. Your mom told my mom that you have been taking a lot of painkillers since the surgery. Like a lot. She said you were dependent. That you have not been yourself. That you might, her words, cause a scene tonight. I set my water glass down very carefully. I looked across the room at Sandra. She was laughing with Raymond's cousin. One hand on his arm. The picture of warmth. The perfect hostess at a party she did not plan, did not pay for, and did not lift a finger to organize. Now I understood the looks. When I had walked in, 2 of Raymond's aunts had glanced at me sideways and then quickly away. I had thought it was the boot. It was not the boot. Sandra had built a story before I even arrived. If I said anything tonight about the money, about the account, about any of it, the narrative was already set. Unstable. On pills. Poor Sandra dealing with such a difficult daughter. She did not just take my money. She took my credibility before I even walked through the door. I looked at Maggie. I stopped taking painkillers 2 weeks after surgery. I am on over-the-counter ibuprofen. That is it. I believe you, Maggie said. I just thought you should know. She squeezed my hand and went back to her seat. Aunt Carolyn settled in beside me and patted my arm without a word. I touched the clutch in my lap. The zipper was still closed. But something inside me had opened. Brett arrived 40 minutes late. He walked in wearing a wrinkled dress shirt, top button undone, no tie. Behind him was a woman I had never seen. Blonde, late 20s, floral sundress, clearly uncomfortable in a room full of people she did not know. She was holding Brett's arm like she was considering bolting. Sandra rose from the head table like she was greeting a returning hero. "Oh, Brett, you brought someone. How wonderful." She hugged him. She hugged the woman. She beamed. "Everyone, this is Tanya, Brett's girlfriend." Tanya gave a small wave. A few people smiled politely. Great Aunt Helen squinted at her, then at Brett, then back at Tanya like she was working out a math problem she had not been given enough information to solve. The problem was simple. Head table. 8 chairs. 8 people already seated. No room for a 9th. Sandra did the math faster than anyone. She turned to me with that particular smile. The one she saves for when she wants me to shrink. "Honey, can you let Tanya sit here? She is our guest." "Mom, I just had surgery. I cannot stand for 3 hours." Her smile did not waver. "There are chairs by the wall. You can sit over there." Over there was 15 feet away. A folding chair against the cinder block wall. Alone. Away from the head table, away from the family, away from the dinner I had paid for. "Mom, I organized this entire event. I am sitting at this table." Sandra's jaw tightened. She leaned in and dropped her voice, but not far enough. Half the table heard. "Do not make this difficult. She is a guest." As if guest was a higher category than daughter. As if guest outranked the person who had written every check in this room. I looked past her at Raymond. He was watching, fork in hand, not moving. I waited for my father to say something. He set his fork down. He dabbed the corner of his mouth with his napkin. Then he stood slowly, the way he did when he wanted the room to know he was about to handle something. "Claire," he said. Not quietly. "It is just a chair. You can stand in the corner. Do not be dramatic." The room went still. Someone's ice clinked 3 tables away. The caterer paused mid-stride near the kitchen door. 53 people and nobody was chewing. Brett leaned against the wall behind Tanya's new chair. He shrugged. "Yeah, it is not that deep." Tanya looked down at the tablecloth. She could feel the weight of something she did not fully understand yet. From the far end of the table, Great Aunt Helen spoke. Her voice carried the way it always had, clear and unapologetic. "That girl just had surgery. Raymond, what on earth is the matter with you?" Raymond did not look at her. He looked at me. Waiting. I looked down at my walking boot. The Velcro straps. The stiff plastic shell holding my reconstructed ankle together. 6 weeks of healing. 6 weeks of planning this party from a couch. I stood up. It took real effort. The crutch caught on the chair leg. My ankle sent a sharp message up through my entire leg. Aunt Carolyn half rose to help me, but I shook my head. My clutch slipped from my lap as I pushed back. It fell open just slightly, a flash of white paper visible inside. Aunt Carolyn glanced at it. She said nothing. I picked it up, closed it, and tucked it under my arm. Tanya sat in my chair without meeting my eyes. Raymond smoothed his napkin. "See? No big deal. Let us enjoy the evening. No big deal." The story of my entire life in this family condensed into 4 words. The corner was exactly as cold as it looked. I leaned against the cinder block wall near the emergency exit. The crutch was under my right arm. My ankle pulsed with a deep, dull ache, the kind the surgeon had warned me about. Do not stand on it for extended periods. The hardware is still settling. From where I stood I had a perfect view of the head table. My hydrangea centerpiece. My place card and calligraphy I had chosen myself, now pushed aside to make room for Tanya's plate. Sandra was pouring wine. Raymond was cutting into prime rib. Brett was telling a story with his hands, grinning at something I could not hear. Nobody brought me a chair. Nobody offered their seat. Nobody walked over. The caterer, a woman named Janet whose company I had hired for 4 events that year, passed with a tray. She stopped, looked at me, frowned. "Miss Finch, why are you standing? Let me get you a." "I am fine, Janet. Thank you." She hesitated. Then moved on. Glancing back once. 2 minutes later, Aunt Carolyn appeared at my side. She was carrying her own plate as if she had simply wandered over. But Carolyn never did anything accidentally. "This is not right," she said quietly. "And you know it." "I know." "What are you going to do?" I looked at the clutch under my arm. The paper inside. The signature I had put on that form the morning after my mother told me not to embarrass her. "I have not decided yet." Aunt Carolyn looked at me for a long moment. Then she said something I will carry with me for a very long time. "I have watched your mother do this for 30 years. You do not owe her a corner." She walked back to her seat. I stayed standing. But not for much longer. What happens when Sandra stood up to give her toast is something I was not prepared for. And if you have ever been the invisible one, the one who pays and plans and shows up but never gets mentioned, stay right here. Because part 3 is where everything begins to turn. Someone clinked a glass. The room settled. Sandra rose at the head of the table, one hand pressed to her chest like she was about to deliver something deeply moving. Her eyes were already glistening, a skill she had perfected over decades of family gatherings. "I just want to say a few words," she began. 40 years with this man. 40 years of building a family, a home, a life. She looked at Raymond. He nodded. "The good husband. We have been so blessed with 2 wonderful children. Brett." She paused and reached for his hand. "Who is finding his way and who brought this lovely young woman into our lives tonight. Tanya, welcome to the family." Tanya smiled nervously. Brett squeezed her shoulder. I waited. "And of course our friends and family who came tonight, we are so grateful." That was it. She was done. From somewhere near the bar, Great Aunt Helen's voice cut through the applause like a clean knife. "Sandra, are you not going to thank Claire? She put this entire thing together." A few heads turned toward the corner where I was standing. Sandra blinked. Her smile recalibrated. "Oh, of course. And helped too." Helped. Helped like I had carried in a casserole dish. Like I had shown up an hour early to fold napkins. Not like I had spent 6 weeks organizing every single detail from a couch with a broken ankle. Not like I had written a $6,500 check for this room and this food and these flowers and this banner that still said 40 years of love on the wall above her head. Helped. I tightened my grip on the clutch. And at that moment, standing in a corner I had not been asked to stand in, leaning on a crutch in a room I had paid for, listening to my mother thank everyone in that hall except the person who had made the hall possible, I made my decision. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. Have you ever been that person? The invisible one? The one who funds everything and gets thanked for nothing? If you have ever stood in that corner, literally or figuratively, drop it in the comments. I want to know I was not alone in this. Because for a long time, I thought I was. Brett found me by the wall 10 minutes later. He was holding a beer, his third by the look of it, wearing the expression of someone who believes he is being generous by acknowledging your existence. "Do not take it personally, sis," he said, loud enough for the 2 couples at the nearest table to hear. "Mom just wants everything perfect tonight." "I organized everything tonight, Brett." He grinned. That grin. The one that says nothing I do is serious enough to be real. "Yeah, well, that is kind of your thing, right? Planning parties?" "My thing. Like it was a hobby." Like I did not have a business license, a client roster, and a tax identification number. I did not respond. He took a long swig of his beer, satisfied with himself, and drifted back toward the head table. But he did not make it there. Tanya met him halfway. She had her purse strap in both hands, twisting it. "Brett," she said, "can I talk to you for a second?" He waved her off. "Not now, babe." She ignored that. She walked past him and came directly to me. Her voice was low, uncertain. "Hey. I did not know there were not enough chairs. Brett told me you offered to switch. He said you were completely fine with it." I looked at Brett over her shoulder. He had frozen mid-step. Beer halfway to his mouth. "I did not offer anything," I told Tanya. "But it is not your fault." She stared at me. Then she turned back to Brett. Something clicked in her face. The kind of click that happens when a person realizes they have been standing inside a lie without knowing it. "You told me she was okay with it," she said. Brett shrugged. "Can we not do this right now?" But the two couples at the nearest table had heard every word. One woman looked at her husband. He raised an eyebrow. The cracks were starting to show. Not just in my family. In the story Sandra had built around it. Dinner service began. Plates of chicken piccata and prime rib moved from the kitchen to the tables. The smell of rosemary filled the hall. I was still standing. No chair. No table assignment. No plate. The caterer had not set a place for me at the wall because why would she? I was supposed to be at the head table. Aunt Carolyn noticed. She stood, took her own plate, and carried it to me with a fork and knife wrapped in a napkin. "Here. Eat something." Sandra saw this from across the room. She was on her feet in seconds, moving between tables with the efficiency of someone accustomed to controlling every space she entered. "Carolyn, do not encourage her." Her voice was loud enough for half the hall to catch. "She is making a scene standing there looking miserable. She could sit at the children's table if she really wanted a seat." The children's table. I was 34 years old. I owned the building my parents slept in. I ran a business. And my mother had just suggested to a room full of relatives that I belonged with the 8-year-olds. Aunt Carolyn did not flinch. "Sandra," she said, "she has a surgically reconstructed ankle. It cannot be that bad. She is walking, is she not?" From the head table, Raymond's voice. "Can we please just eat?" That sentence. That tired dismissive conversation-ending sentence. The verbal equivalent of a man pulling a blanket over his head and calling it a resolution. I set Aunt Carolyn's plate down on the nearest table. I looked at the head table. At the banner. At my centerpieces. At the $6,500 worth of evening that was not and had never been about me. I opened my clutch. For the first time that night, I reached inside. My fingers touched the edge of the paper folded in thirds. Crisp. The bank statement was beneath it, clipped to a second copy. I did not pull them out yet. I stood there, clutch open, and I looked around the room one last time. The centerpieces I had chosen at 6 in the morning, one-handed, scrolling through a wholesale website with my ankle throbbing. The tablecloths I had ordered, white, not ivory, because Sandra had changed her mind 3 times. The string lights I had called 4 vendors to find because the first 3 were out of stock. $6,500. And she said I helped. I looked at the head table. Sandra's wine glass half empty. Raymond's clean plate. Brett's third beer. Tanya sitting in my seat, her napkin barely touched, looking like she wanted to disappear into the floor. I thought about the joint account. The empty line where $18,000 used to be. I thought about Dr. Henley's face when he explained the rehabilitation program. Serious. Precise. This is the difference between full recovery and permanent limitation. I thought about my ankle, my career. Every morning I would wake up and feel the damage my parents had funded with my own money so their son could gamble and drive drunk. If I sat back down, wherever they put me, in whatever corner they assigned, I would sign that renewal in 45 days. And nothing would change. Not ever. I pulled the papers from the clutch. Folded. Not yet open. I stepped toward the head table. The crutch tapped the hardwood floor. Once. Twice. 3 times. Aunt Carolyn watched me go. She did not stop me. The crutch made a sound like a metronome on the old hardwood. Tap tap tap. Forks hovered. Heads turned. I passed Great Aunt Helen. She watched me with eyes that had seen 60 years of family nonsense and looked like she had been waiting for exactly this walk. I stopped behind Raymond's chair. Close enough to see the embroidered monogram on his shirt pocket. The shirt I had bought him last Christmas. Sandra looked up. Her face cycled through 3 expressions in under a second. Surprise. Annoyance. Fear. Claire. Her voice was a whisper trying to be a command. Sit down. Not here. I have been standing for an hour, Mom. On a reconstructed ankle. I think I have earned the right to say something. Raymond turned in his chair. This is not the time. When is the time, Dad? He blinked. Because I called 3 days ago and you told me to drop it. You said we would talk after the party. No. What you actually said was do not ruin your mother's night. The same night you are wearing a suit I bought you. Eating food I paid for. At a party I organized. The hall was silent. Not the comfortable silence of a pause between toasts. The heavy electric silence of 53 people who have just collectively realized something is about to happen. I placed the folded papers on the table between Raymond's water glass and Sandra's wine. The white rectangle sat there like a held breath. I am not here to ruin your party, I said. I am here to stop ruining myself. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Part 4 is coming. And it is the part where everything comes out. The account. The 18,000. The pawn shop. The corner. All of it. In front of every single person in that room. I unfolded the first page. Mom. Dad. I kept my voice level, conversational, like I was confirming a catering order. The condo you live in. Who owns it? Raymond's mouth opened. Closed. What does that have to do with anything? Silence. Sandra's fingers tightened around her wineglass stem. From 2 seats down, Great Aunt Helen spoke first. I thought you two owned it. They do not. I looked at Helen when I said it, then back to the table. I bought it 3 years ago when they were 3 months behind on rent and facing eviction. I own the property. They pay me $400 a month. Market rate is $1,400. The whispers started immediately. Low and scattered. Like wind moving through dry leaves. Uncle Philip leaned forward in his chair. Cousin Maggie's eyes went wide. A woman I barely recognized at table 6 turned to her husband and mouthed something. Sandra's hand lifted from the table. Claire, you are making this sound worse than. I am stating facts, Mom. I tapped the paper on the table. This is a 30-day non-renewal notice. Your lease expires April 30th. I am choosing not to renew it. Raymond picked up the paper. His face drained. Not red, not angry. White. The color of a man who has just realized the floor beneath him belongs to someone else and always has. You cannot do this, Sandra said. Her voice cracked on the last word. That is our home. It is my property, I said. You have been late on rent 11 out of 36 months. That is a lease violation. Raymond set the paper down. His hand was shaking. I had not raised my voice once. I did not plan to. The facts were loud enough on their own. But I was not done. There is something else, I said. And I reached for the second document. The bank statement was a single page. 4 lines highlighted in yellow. I placed it flat on the table so Raymond and Sandra could both see it. And I did not whisper. 6 weeks ago I had ankle reconstruction surgery. The $18,000 I saved for physical therapy was in a joint account for genuine emergencies. Dad withdrew every penny. For transactions over 2 months. The room held its breath. Raymond stared at the yellow highlights. He did not touch the paper. We were going to pay it back. Where did it go, Dad? Nothing. I turned to Brett. He was leaned back in his chair with his arms crossed and his jaw tight. For the first time all night, he was not grinning. It went to Brett's gambling debts, I said. And his DUI fines. And a pawn shop on Route 9. Brett's chair scraped the floor as he stood. That is not, you do not know what you are talking about. 4,200 to the pawn shop on Route 9. March 14th. The day your truck got repossessed. He sat back down. Slow. Like the air had gone out of him completely. The whispers in the hall were louder now. Not whispers anymore. Low voices, sharp intakes of breath. At table 4 a woman covered her mouth with her hand. Uncle Philip was staring at Raymond with an expression I had never seen on his face before. Tanya looked at Brett. Then at me. Then back at Brett. Something in her face changed. Not anger exactly. More like recognition. The slow, dawning understanding of someone who is starting to see the shape of a lie she has been standing inside of. From the end of the head table, Aunt Carolyn rose to her feet. Her voice carried across the silent room. Sandra, is this true? You took her surgery money? Sandra stood. The tears came instantly, the way they always did, perfectly timed. She pressed a napkin to her face. This is exactly what I was afraid of, she said, her voice trembling. Claire has been under such enormous stress. The painkillers after her surgery. She has not been herself. I let the sentence land. Let the room absorb it. Then I responded. I am not on painkillers, Mom. I stopped taking them 2 weeks after surgery. Ibuprofen only. Dr. Henley can confirm that. Sandra shook her head. Tears streaming. You are confused, sweetheart. You do not even realize. Wait. Cousin Maggie was standing now. Her green wrap dress caught the light as she stepped out from behind her chair. Aunt Sandra, you told my mother that Claire was addicted to pills. Those were your exact words. You said she was out of control. A ripple moved through the hall. Whispers from table 3. Great Aunt Helen set her cane down on the floor with a deliberate click. She was not using it as a cane right now. She was using it as a gavel. Sandra pivoted. I never said addicted. I said dependent. There is a difference. No, Sandra. Aunt Carolyn's voice was flat and steady. The voice of a woman who had been patient for 30 years and was done. You told me she was out of control. You said it on the phone last Tuesday. I wrote it down because I did not believe you even then. Now I know why. The napkin dropped from Sandra's hand. Her face, still wet, flushed red. Not from crying. From the recognition that her safety net, the story she had sewn carefully to protect herself, had just unraveled in front of everyone she had been trying to impress. You are all taking her side. Her voice pitched upward. After everything I have done for this family. Nobody answered. The silence said everything that needed to be said. Raymond stood. He raised both hands, palms out. The universal gesture of a man who believes he can still control a room by appearing calm. Everyone, please. This is a family matter. Let us handle it privately. You had a chance to handle it privately, Dad. 3 days ago you told me to drop it. You said do not ruin your mother's night. The same night you are wearing a suit I bought you, eating a meal I paid for, in a room I decorated. I am done being private about the people who took from me. Great Aunt Helen rapped her cane on the floor once. The sound cut through everything. Raymond. Did you take that girl's money or not? He looked down at the table. At the bank statement. At the yellow highlights. He did not answer. Helen nodded slowly. That is all I need to hear. Brett shoved his chair back. This is insane. She is always dramatic. She has always been dramatic. And then a quiet voice from his right. Tanya. She was not looking at him. She was looking at the tablecloth. Brent. You told me she offered her chair. You said she was completely fine with it. Tanya, he said sharply. Stay out of this. It was not true, was it? He did not answer. The silence ran in the family, apparently. Tanya picked up her purse from the back of the chair. My chair. She stood. She did not say goodbye to Brett. She did not say anything else at all. She simply walked to the far end of the hall and sat down next to Great Aunt Helen, who patted her hand once without a word. The head table now had an empty seat. The irony was not lost on me. I pointed to the non-renewal notice still sitting in front of Raymond. That is a 30-day non-renewal. Your lease expires April 30th. I will not be renewing it. You have 30 days to find a new place. Sandra grabbed the edge of the table. You cannot throw us out. We are your parents. I am not throwing you out. I am declining to renew a lease that has been violated. Chronically late rent, unauthorized access to my finances, and $18,000 withdrawn without my knowledge or consent. Where are we supposed to go? Raymond asked. His voice had gone small. Smaller than I had ever heard it in my life. That is not my problem anymore, Dad. I have been solving your problems for 10 years. I am done. The words came out clean. No tremor. No tears. Not because I was not hurting. I was. But the hurt was not new. It was 10 years old. I had just been carrying it quietly until tonight. One more thing, I said. I called the bank this morning. Raymond, your name has been removed from the joint account. Any further withdrawals will require my authorization only. Raymond looked at me. Sandra looked at the room. The room looked at me. I picked up the bank statement and the non-renewal notice, folded them, and placed them back in the clutch. I paid for this party. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the cake. I paid for your condo. I paid for Brett's fines and Brett's debts and Brett's mistakes. The only thing I am not paying for anymore is my own silence. I snapped the clutch shut. The sound was small. A tiny metallic click. But in a room that quiet it sounded like a door closing. And maybe it was. Aunt Carolyn was the first to stand. She had been sitting with the patience of someone who had been waiting a long time for this moment. I am ashamed I did not say something sooner, she said. She looked directly at Sandra. You have been using this girl since she was 24 years old. And I watched. That is on me. Great Aunt Helen raised her cane an inch off the floor and let it fall. Raymond, I am calling your brother Harold tomorrow. He needs to know exactly what you did with that money. Brett pushed away from the table. He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair and walked toward the exit. Not looking at anyone. Not looking at me. Not looking at Tanya. Tanya did not follow. She stayed in her seat next to Helen. Hands in her lap. Very still. Sandra was crying now. Not the strategic tears from earlier. These were real and ragged. The sound of someone whose script had been torn in half. You are destroying this family. I looked at my mother. The woman who had raised me. The woman who had told 53 people I was a pill addict so they would not believe me when I told the truth. No, Mom. I am leaving it. There is a difference. At tables across the hall people were standing, murmuring, reaching for coats. Uncle Philip shook his head slowly. Two of Raymond's coworkers from the mill quietly gathered their wives and moved toward the door. But a few people came toward me. Raymond's cousin Frank. A neighbor from Elm Street. They put a hand on my shoulder. A quick quiet squeeze. They did not need to say words. Raymond did not stand. He sat at the head of a table that no longer felt like the head of anything, staring at the folded paper in front of him. You can cry, Mom, I said. But you cannot rewrite what happened. Not tonight. I collected my crutch, tucked the clutch under my arm, and I walked toward the door. Every step on that hardwood floor echoed. Nobody stopped me. Aunt Carolyn caught up near the exit. She was carrying her coat and her purse as though she had already decided she was leaving the moment I did. You need a ride? Rachel is outside. Carolyn nodded. Call me tomorrow. I mean it. She hugged me carefully, avoiding the crutch, one hand on the back of my head. The kind of hug my mother used to give me when I was very small. Before she figured out which child was useful and which one was lovable. I pushed through the double doors into the parking lot. The cold air hit my face. Sharp. Clear. Late April, Pennsylvania. The sky was dark and full of stars that did not care about anniversary parties. Diane was parked 3 spots from the entrance. Engine idling. Window down. She looked at me over the top of her reading glasses. How did it go? I lowered myself into the passenger seat. Every joint in my body exhaled. I do not have a family dinner to go to anymore. Diane put the car in drive. You have a physical therapy appointment Monday. That is a start. I almost laughed. Almost. As we pulled out of the lot, I looked back at the VFW Hall through the rear window. The banner was still visible through the glass doors. 40 years of love. The string lights still glowed. The party was still technically happening. But it was not mine anymore. And for the first time, that felt exactly right. Part 5 is the last part. And it is the part where I tell you what happened to my ankle, my career, my family, and what I finally understood about 10 years of standing in corners I never should have been asked to stand in. The calls started the next morning. Sandra's first. I let it ring to voicemail. She left a 2-minute message, half crying and half accusing. You humiliated us. You humiliated your father. I hope you are proud of yourself. Then she called Aunt Carolyn. Then Uncle Philip. Then every cousin and second cousin she could reach before noon. The script was familiar. Claire overreacted. Claire is unstable. Claire needs help. It did not work. Too many people had been in that room. Too many of them had watched me stand on a reconstructed ankle while a stranger sat in my chair. Too many of them had heard Raymond say it is just a chair and watched Sandra call me a pill addict while a bank statement sat on the table in front of her. You cannot rewrite a story that 53 people watched happen in real time. Aunt Carolyn called me at noon. Your mother called me crying. I told her the same thing I am telling you now. She brought this on herself. Cousin Maggie texted. I am sorry I did not say more. I should have. Love you. Great Aunt Helen, who used social media the way she used her cane, with precision and force, posted in the family group that evening. What I saw last night broke my heart. Not because of what Claire did. Because of what was done to her. That girl deserved better from her parents. Shame on whoever disagrees. 14 reactions within an hour. Every single one of them a heart. Raymond sent me one text on Monday. Can we talk? I did not respond. Not yet. I was not punishing him. I was just not ready. There is a difference. The practical reality was brutal and simple. Raymond's pension from the mill paid $1,900 a month. Sandra had no income. At $400 a month, my condo had been a lifeline they had never once acknowledged. At market rate, $1,400, they could not afford it. And I was not renewing the lease regardless. By mid-May they found a one-bedroom apartment in a town 20 minutes farther out. Smaller. Older. Raymond carried boxes in silence. Sandra cried through the entire move, I was told. I was not there. I was not invited. I did not ask to be. Brett disappeared for 2 weeks after the party. His phone went straight to voicemail. Tanya, I learned from Maggie, ended things with him the following morning. She said she could not trust a single thing he had told her. Smart girl, Maggie said. No one in the family offered Brett money anymore. Not because they all suddenly despised him. But because now they knew where the money went. Awareness is a powerful thing. 3 weeks after the party, Raymond called. Not a text this time. A call. His voice was low and stripped of the authority he had worn like that monogrammed shirt. I made a mistake, Claire. I know, Dad. I should have told you. I should have asked. You should have, I said. But a mistake is once. This was a system. A long pause. I heard him breathing. What do you need from me? He asked. $18,000, I said. I will accept a payment plan. $300 a month from your pension. It will take 5 years. Okay. And Dad. Do not ever sign your name to my accounts again. Okay. It was not forgiveness. It was not reconciliation. It was a starting line. The first honest transaction between us in a decade. I would take it. The physical therapy clinic on Grant Street had fluorescent lights and a faint smell of rubbing alcohol. Not glamorous. But when Dr. Henley reviewed my intake and said we can start the full program next week, I nearly cried in the waiting room. I paid for the first month with what remained in my personal savings plus Raymond's first installment. $300, deposited on time. I checked twice. My ankle responded to therapy the way soil responds to rain. Slowly. Then all at once. By week 3 I was bearing partial weight without the boot. By week 6 the crutch became a cane. By week 8 the cane stayed in the car. My business did not skip a beat. I landed a corporate retreat contract the week after the party. Then a graduation dinner. Then a small wedding outside Scranton. Clients did not know about my family. They knew me as the woman who showed up early, stayed late, and made sure every napkin was folded the right way. Aunt Carolyn became the family I chose. She drove me to therapy on Tuesdays when my schedule was tight. Cousin Maggie stopped by on weekends with coffee and whatever terrible reality television she was currently obsessed with. One afternoon I found a letter in my mailbox. Handwritten. Sandra's looping cursive on stationery. You broke our family, Claire. I hope someday you understand what you did. I read it once. Folded it. Placed it in the kitchen drawer alongside the old lease and the bank statement. My mom wrote that I broke the family. And part of me, that soft and honest part that never fully goes away, sat with that for a while. Did I? Or did I just stop holding together something that was already broken? I think a lot of us carry that weight. The fear that setting a boundary means being the villain. The terror that protecting yourself will make you the one who is wrong. Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. I want to be honest about something. For 10 years I told myself that giving was the same as loving. That if I just paid enough, helped enough, showed up enough, eventually they would see me. Not as the planner. Not as the fixer. Not as the person who kept everything from collapsing. Just as Claire. It never happened. And the reason is simple. I was not buying love. I was buying permission to exist in my own family. And that is a price no one should ever have to pay. I do not tell you this to lecture anyone. I tell you because I wish someone had told me earlier and louder that generosity without limits is not generosity. It is a transaction where one person pays and the other takes, and the person paying always runs out first. My parents are not monsters. I want to be clear about that. They are people who made choices. Selfish, small, damaging choices, and built a system that worked for everyone except the person holding it up. Raymond chose silence because it was easier than honesty. Sandra chose Brett because admitting he had failed meant admitting she had failed. And I kept writing checks because the alternative was standing in the silence and feeling the absence. But here is what I learned. Standing in that corner, leaning on a crutch in a room I had paid for, the absence was already there. It had been there for years. I just could not feel it because I had been too busy filling it with money. Setting a limit is not selfish. It is the first honest thing I ever did for myself. Not the cruelest thing. The most honest thing. I did not walk away because I stopped loving them. I walked away because I finally started loving myself enough to stop standing in corners. And that was the beginning. 4 months later my ankle was at 80%. I walked 2 miles the previous morning without pain, the first time since the accident. I wore heels to a client meeting last Saturday. Low heels. But still heels. My physical therapist high-fived me, which is basically the medical equivalent of a standing ovation. The condo had a new tenant. A young couple, their first home together. They paid $1,400 a month on the first of every month and had never once asked me to cover their siblings' poker debts. Raymond had made 3 payments on time, each one deposited quietly without commentary. We spoke occasionally. Short calls. 5 minutes, maybe 7. We did not discuss Sandra. We did not discuss Brett. We talked about the weather and the local baseball team and whether the diner on Main Street had changed their coffee blend. It was not warm. But it was honest. And honest was more than I had before. Sandra had not reached out since the letter. I heard through Maggie that she was adjusting to the new apartment. That she told people I had gone through a difficult time. Her version of history would always be different from mine. I had accepted that. Brett had moved somewhere. Allentown, maybe. Nobody was entirely sure. Nobody was asking. Last Sunday I organized a birthday party. Aunt Carolyn's 59th. Small. 20 guests. Backyard barbecue. Paper plates. Christmas lights strung between 2 oak trees. And at the head of that table, right at the center, there was a chair with my name on it. Not a place card. Just Maggie grinning and patting the seat. Saved you a spot. I sat down. First one seated. Last one to leave. Nobody asked me to move. Nobody suggested I would be more comfortable somewhere else. Nobody treated my broken ankle like a minor inconvenience standing between them and what they wanted. The first party I had ever planned where I actually got to sit at the table. If you are standing in someone's corner right now because they told you your comfort does not matter, that your pain is not serious enough, that your contribution is not worth a seat, I want you to hear this. The chair was never just a chair. It was a test. Every time they asked me to move, to shrink, to step aside, they were testing whether I would keep choosing them over myself. And for 10 years I passed that test every single time. The night I failed, it was the night I finally got it right. I am not telling you to cut off your family. I am not telling you to make scenes at anniversary parties. Every situation carries its own weight and its own particular gravity. But I am telling you this. When your health and your finances and your dignity are under attack, and the people attacking them are the people who were supposed to protect you, a boundary is not optional. It is survival. I do not carry anger anymore. I carry clarity. I know what I am worth. I know what I am willing to pay. Those 2 numbers finally match. And for the record, my ankle is doing beautifully. I wore proper heels last Saturday. 3 inches. Navy blue. To match the dress I bought myself. They were spectacular. Thank you for staying with me through every part of this. If this story meant something to you, if it reminded you of your own table or your own corner or your own moment of enough, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Your peace is not negotiable. I will see you in the next one.